I'm Connor Quimby.
English and Albanian share a weirdly similar phonemic inventory. In fact, if we take all of the consonant phonemes of English, with the exception of the labiovelar approximant, they're all in Albanian. Well, Albanian doesn't exactly have the English R, but they do have the alveolar trill and the alveolar tap. Even more, some other English allophones like the velar L, T, and Z are fully phonemic in Albanian. Now, Albanian has 7 phonemic vowels compared to General American's 13, but they line up relatively well. Albanian lacks the lax vowels of English, pun entirely intended, in addition to the English diphthongs and ash. But with an inventory of I, U, E, A, U, O, the correlation is pretty clear. If we were to write English in Albanian orthography, it would honestly work pretty well. We could write the diphthongs of English as just the 2 vowels next to each other, the lax vowels as their tense counterparts, and write the schwa like Albanian, as an E with a diaeresis. This begs the question, English spelling is infamously ridiculous. Why don't we write English with Albanian orthography? Well, there are a couple of answers ranging from William the Conqueror, the Winged Hussars, and the prospect of eternal damnation. But let's have some fun, because Albanian is relevant for at least one thing other than being a possible isolate within Indo-European. According to Robert Elsey, a Canadian-German albanologist, the 100 years between 1750 and 1850 were an age of astounding orthographic diversity in Albania. In this period, the Albanian language was put to writing in at least 10 different alphabets, most certainly a record for European languages. Do you see the potential for gross violations of the sanctity of orthography? Let's write a phonemic pangram in every single Albanian script that I could find enough data on. The phonemic pangram I'm using is the beige hue on the waters of the Loch impressed all, including the French queen, before she heard that symphony again, just as young Arthur wanted. Here's the transcription I'm using for it, mostly based off of my own dialect. It's not perfect, but it'll do the trick. The modern Albanian alphabet is based off of a modified version of the Bashkimi alphabet, selected as one of the official alphabets at the 1908 Congress of Manastir. We're using the digraphs DH for the voiced dental fricative, ZH for the voiced postalveolar fricative, LL for the velarized L, and XH for the voiced postalveolar affricate. I have decided to use RR for the alveolar tap so that it can be represented in waters, as well as using U for the labiovelar approximant since it's the best option available. I've also elected to write Loch with KH to represent the voiceless velar fricative, which neither Albanian nor English truly have. This will stand throughout the video. Note the usage of E with a diaeresis for the schwa, the combination of tense and lax vowel pairs, and my greatest sin. I couldn't figure out how to write the near open front unrounded vowel ash, but I have a pretty strong northern cities vowel shift and don't even have it myself, so I've done an executive decision and split it into the close mid front unrounded vowel followed by schwa, as I pronounce it. This will stand for the remainder of the video. Overall, I like it. C with Sadia for the voiceless postalveolar affricate ch is a little weird given the usage of th and sh for voiceless fricatives, but modern Albanian orthography is quite nice for English. 7 out of 10. The prior form of the modern alphabet, Old Bashkimi, differs in a few ways. Relevant here are ch instead of the Sadia, e with an acute accent instead of e, with e going to the schwa, and the modern usages of z and x, and zh and xh switched. Although it looks slightly more like modern English orthography, I think it's worse than modern Albanian, especially because x representing z is gross. 6 out of 10. The Istanbul alphabet was created by Sami Frashëri and the Society for the Printing of Albanian Writings in 1879. It was the other selected national alphabet at the Congress of Manastir, and although it fell out of use in the early 1900s, many of its conventions were lent to the modern Albanian alphabet. The Istanbul alphabet is smack dab in the middle of the uncanny valley of writing systems. Note the weird delta for the, epsilon for e, and the normal e for schwa with unusual uppercase forms, lambda for dark L, pi for p, an original character based off of sigma for sh, a theta derived from the cursive lowercase, x for z, and a special x for j, and a z with the sadia for j. Pi is used for p, since the Istanbul alphabet uses r for the tap and rho for the trill. In the original documents, rho is described as rough, so to adapt it for English, I'm using rho for the tap and r for the alveolar approximant. To be honest, I don't really like the Istanbul alphabet for Albanian or English. Commit to something, you know? 4 out of 10. The Agimi alphabet was the third proposed alphabet at the Congress of Manastir. Relevant to English, it uses eth and thorn for the dental fricatives, s, c, z, and dz with hachx for the fricatives and affricates, a schwa for schwa, an R with a tilde for the trill, which I again have adapted for the tap and waters, and our old Polish friend /el for the velarized L. Good for us is the addition of W, which alongside Q and X was brought in for foreign words. Honestly, I kind of like this. Points for Thorn and Eth, but I think it could use the R with a tilde being switched to an R with a hachek for diacritic conformity, and the modern E with a diaeresis for the schwa. 8 out of 10. Ethnic Albanians in Greece, the Arvanites, adopted the Greek alphabet with some Latin characters and innovative digraphs to write Albanian. Using this on our pangram is just writing English in the Greek alphabet with more steps, but it fits better in my opinion. Delta and theta are used for the fricatives, with Latin D and tau used for the plosives. Beta is used for v, with Latin B for b. Eta is used for the schwa, allowing epsilon to be a and e. Omega gets to be o, since omicron is used in a digraph with upsilon for u. Note lambda iota to mark a palatalized L, which I've adopted for a normal English L, with double lambda showing the velarized dark L. My main issue here is rho with an apostrophe for the trill/alveolar tap in English, and I'm not a fan of the digraphs using sigma, but I don't really know how else to write them. 6.5 out of 10. Arvanitic 2 is what would happen if a bunch of illiterate mountain people took a basic Greek alphabet course and tried to adopt it for their language, which is probably exactly what happened because, ugh. The one cool thing about this is the Byzantine digraph O for U, but come on, what's with the dots and diaereses? Not to mention using epsilon with a tilde below for schwa. Just no. 2 out of 10. The Albanian Cyrillic alphabet I'm using is just the one from Wikipedia following the book Rechnik o Tri Jezika. Real talk, this is pretty cool. Bakyur, or the hard sign for the schwa, is a little weird. I would have used yo to continue the Albanian tradition, but bringing in delta and theta honestly works pretty well and is better than the Bashkir Z with Sedila I suggested in my Anglo-Cyrillic video. Using lye for the normal L and L for the velarized is not great, but those are just allophones anyways, not a huge deal like in our previous alphabets. We do have h for the word loch, which is nice, and our only digraph is double r for the tap. Altogether, far better than my system in Anglo-Cyrillic. 7.5 out of 10. If we added the y with the brave for w, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. The Elifba alphabet was based off of the Ottoman Turkish Abjad and was used by Muslim Albanians during the Ottoman Empire. The Young Turks tried to get it adopted as the official Albanian script until 1911 when they dropped the issue. The Congress of Monastir functionally ended its use in independent Albania. So I can't read Perso-Arabic scripts, and so I don't have any context on whether the grapheme choices are weird or not. I hope I copy and pasted this all correctly. I don't think this is great for English for a multitude of cultural and utilitarian purposes. Remember that we also have different glyphs for initial, medial, and final positions, which is cool for cursive calligraphy, but yeah, it doesn't really work. You have to learn 3 times the normal amount of glyphs. Not really great for English, especially because we're adding vowels into what should be an Abjad system. I'm not giving this a rating, but if I could, it would be pretty low. The Albanian Arabic alphabet was made in 1861 by Mullah Daoud Borici, and is directly based off of Arabic instead of Ottoman Turkish. For me, it's the same exact story as the previous Alifba alphabet. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if the Albanian Arabic alphabet was ever used in Albania, or just among a few ethnic Albanians in Constantinople. I'll leave it up for a few seconds in case you want to look at it more thoroughly. No rating out of 10. The Tothri alphabet is the first original Albanian script we're going to talk about. It is credited to Theodore Hadjiphilippi and was used in the late 18th century around the city of Elbasan and features 52 characters. According to Robert Elsey, it does not conform adequately to Albanian phonology. However, German albanologists in the 1800s viewed it as the original Albanian alphabet and debated whether it was a derivative of Roman cursive or ancient Phoenician. Tothri reminds me of Sequoia's invention of the Cherokee syllabary, that of an illiterate person creating a writing system based off of what he thought looked cool. Although Tothri is in Unicode, I had to manually draw this, and it's clunky. There are a lot of characters I didn't even use in this transliteration. Overall, it's clunky and it feels like a very amateur conlinger's first writing script. 2 out of 10 with points for being unique. The Gyrocaster alphabet, also known after its creator Veso Bey, was a cryptic script that saw limited usage by a Muslim bey and his family in southern Albania during the 1800s in the town of Gyrocaster. There are only 22 characters corresponding to Greek letters, with the exception of upsilon and omega, so I had to take some significant liberties when transliterating this into English. Honestly, I don't know if this should be on this list because I couldn't find whether it was actually used to write Albanian. It very well may have been just cryptic Greek written in what is today modern Albania, as Gyrocaster had a Greek minority among Muslim Albanians during the time of the Ottoman Empire. This was my attempt at writing our English pangram in it. The stars are noting where I had to combine phonemes into one grapheme, and I'll keep the chart on the screen for a few seconds so you can look at it. 0 out of 10. It doesn't work. The Valara script is documented in one manuscript as the personal creation of Greek doctor Ioannis Villaras. He lived in southern Albania during the early 1800s and wrote the manuscript in 1801, likely to help Greeks learn Albanian. There are 30 characters, which seem to take more from Latin cursive than Greek, mixed in with a few original characters. Many of the glyphs look too close to Latin or Greek characters with different phonemic values than you would expect. I've had to take some liberties again, marked by blue stars and by the footnotes on screen. The Valara script looks aesthetically nice, but with many of its characters looking so similar, I find it quite hard to read. Cool personal project, but not practical. 1 out of 10. Naum Vekilharji invented the Vithkuki alphabet between 1825 and 1845. As an Orthodox man in Muslim southern Albania, his goal was to make a script that was as religiously neutral as possible for the religiously diverse Albanian population, thus trying to avoid similarities and influences from the Latin and Greek alphabets and the Ottoman Turkish Abjad. The script never really took off after its final version was published in 1845, due to issues with casting entirely new type and the likely assassination of Vekilharji in 1846. As one of the earliest leaders of the Albanian national awakening, it's claimed that he was poisoned under the orders of the Patriarch of Constantinople. Vithkuki is missing characters for the modern Albanian digraphs GJ, which we don't need for English, RR, which we also don't really need, XH, and ZH. I have elected to write modern XH and ZH as digraphs of the Vithkuki X and Z equivalent plus H. Honestly, I dig this. It's a bit ornate for everyday handwriting, which I had to do because, as with Tothri, although it's in Unicode, I didn't care enough to find a site to copy and paste from. Overall, 5 out of 10. It looks nice, but it's a bit of a hassle to use, and it requires learning from scratch. Before I get to my favorite original Albanian script, it should also be noted that there are 2 other original Albanian scripts. The Barati script, used briefly in an Orthodox manuscript, which I was unable to find enough information to write in, and an undeciphered script from the cover of the 1761 Elbasan manuscript. Speaking of the 1761 Elbasan manuscript, the Elbasan script is my favorite Albanian alphabet, and honestly, my favorite writing system in general. If I knew about it when I made top 10 writing systems, it would be number 1. It's easy to learn, has a near-perfect phonemic correspondence with the exception of 3 characters, 2 of which are used for Greek loanwords, and it looks beautiful. As the oldest known original Albanian alphabet, it was used in the Elbasan Gospel manuscript written in 1761, the oldest Orthodox Bible translation into Albanian. The Elbasan Gospel manuscript is also notable for having very few foreign loanwords, and the script reflects this. Although some letters clearly take influence from Greek and Glagolitic, the characters seem quite original but still very European, without major borrowing from Latin, Greek, Arabic, Cyrillic, or Glagolitic. 3 characters in Elbasan feature a dot. The R glyph with the dot represents the Albanian trill, which I again adapted for the tap in English. The L glyph with the dot represents dark L, and the D glyph with the dot represents the now obsolete pre-nasalized D. We also get a separate glyph for N before G, which I use in my transliteration. Elbasan reminds me a bit of Gothic. It's unique, beautiful, but also distinctly European. It's easy to learn. If we had to pick any foreign writing system to write English in, I personally would pick Elbasan. I think it's far better than even using Futhark with modern English. So, other than my pangram, here are some other sentences written in English Elbasan. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks to my Patreon supporters, John Costello, Andrew B., Addie, Alan, Eden, The Wub, Alexis, Elijah, Fetafioka, Opfisgobble, Cactus, Acorn, Albert Jones, and Talatek. See you guys next time.